Hey, this is Idea Coaches for Coaches from weighing in on the weight classes, episode 8B. The review of UFC 134, BJ Penn versus Nick Diaz. I'll be looking at my notes because I'm going to be talking about a number of fights of which I did not preview in episode A. The prelims this time are actually pretty interesting and very good overall. I want to start off with some of the Facebook prelims, which was Brandon Vera versus Elliot Marshall. Much respect to Brandon Vera for getting his arm broken or at least severely hurt and still pulling through getting the win. The fight overall was quite boring, and something that Tim Sylvia said right before him and Vera fought was that Brandon Vera's kickboxing is great, but his regular boxing is not that good. And Elliot Marshall was tagging him in the third round leading up to him getting his arm and not getting the tap. One thing I do like about that, I do like Elliot Marshall, and I think with this loss, he will still be able to be employed by the UFC. Everything kind of hinges on his very next fight. Spike had the real prelims to watch, and one thing I like to say is that Forrest Griffin, failing to make, the featherweight, being over by 3 pounds as a catchweight fight with Bartimus, and I don't know, I kind of don't like when fighters don't make their weight, kind of F things up, when it comes to, preparation and stuff like that, because 3 pounds is a lot, especially between lightweight and featherweight, where there's only a 10-pound difference. So I'm a little disappointed by Tyson Griffin. The main thing is this: Tyson Griffin has a number of Fight of the Nights on his record, but that was some time ago, and I really think that it's time for Tyson Griffin to change his training camp. It's been a while since the Extreme Couture guys have actually been doing anything progressive as of late. Randy Couture himself, his last couple fights, even when he won, wasn't looking spectacular. Forrest Griffin hasn't been looking so hot as of late. He's been hot and cold, and now Tyson Griffin is falling under that. I think they need to move and evolve. Of course, not Randy since he's retired, but I don't really see Tyson Griffin doing that much anymore. And I know he has skills. I was very surprised that Bartimus whooped his ass so quickly. I hope he takes this loss and just rethinks about his training camp, because I know Tyson Griffin has skills. Okay, let me go on to Daniel Cerrone versus Dennis Silver. I thought that Dennis would lose in unanimous decision. Cerrone has been looking pretty good as of late. I mean, he's been undefeated since the Ben Henderson 2 fight, which was, I think, early 2010, late 2009 at some time. And now he has, 2 Fight of the Night since then, 1 submission of the night that's happened on UFC 137. He has a knockout of the night, the fight before this. The thing is that ever since Ben Henderson, he has taken a slight step down in competition, but he's looked spectacular. I think that he might want to get revenge for his teammate with going against Joe Lauzon, because Joe Lauzon just beat Melvin Gillard, and they're both part of the Greg Jackson camp. Depending if Ben Henderson defeats Clay Guida, then Clay Guida would be a very good matchup for him, but it all depends on what's going on. But I think Clay Guida's part of Team Jackson too. Team Jackson is really big these days, so that fight can't happen, but I don't want to see a Ben Henderson 3. All right, moving on. And this is where things get kind of sad. Crow Cop retired. BJ Penn ended up retiring. This combined with Randy Couture, Matt Hughes kinda, we're not exactly sure, Chuck Liddell, and perhaps Fedor pretty soon. It's just that these guys' last fights, it just seems like such a wet blanket on their careers, you know what I mean? I've never been the biggest fan of Mirko Crow Cop. I mean, I enjoy his fights, I enjoy watching them, but I've never been like a big fan of his, but I do respect him a lot, and I wish him all the best post his MMA and kickboxing career. You're one of the best who's ever done it. Your highlight reel knockouts speak volumes, and he'll always be a legend thanks to YouTube, because people make highlight reels of him just knocking people out. So thanks for all the memories, Crow Cop. All right. The fight ended up being exactly what I thought it was going to be until the second round where Roy Nelson put him in the crucifix. And then after the crucifix happened and he survived round two, it just seems like we were waiting until the knockout, which actually came a little bit later than I thought it would. Roy Nelson is very, very heavy-handed. Where does Roy Nelson go from here? I don't know, maybe Chicago, perhaps. And talking about Chicago, his fight with Matt Mitrione, a lot of people said it was boring, but I'm going to say this. I was anticipating the big punch landing at some point, and so I was excited the whole time watching the fight live. However, I think if I was to rewatch the fight, I would have agreed with most people on the forums, talking about how boring it was. Chicago fought a very, very intelligent fight, and he used Matt Mitrione's inexperience against him. The whole first round was him running away, kind of boring. And then things got kind of interesting when it went to the ground because no one knew what was going to happen. But then nothing big happened, and the third round was more of the same. I kind of blame Chicago a little bit more for that boring experience rather than Matt Mitrione. But I think Matt Mitrione, I think in this loss, just like the Elliot Marshall loss, I think that he can learn a lot from it. Elliot Marshall gets to keep his job, and Matt Mitrione will keep his job as well. But I think this is a good break from his winning streak. You know, it always sucks to lose, but now that he can learn more and at some point develop another streak that will actually put him in more an upper echelon tier of competitors, and hopefully at some point in time fight for the title, because I'm a huge Matt Mitrione fan. Okay, let me get into the Hatsu Hioki versus George Rowe fight. And Hatsu won on a split decision, and that's exactly what it was. Really, round two determined the entire fight. I just think, you know, a lot of people are saying like maybe George could have won the fight. I don't think so. I think this is the dominance of round two. It was not a 10-8 round, but it was clear enough who won. And then round three was kind of tight into the last couple of minutes. George started off great, he ended great, and I was really scared after the first round because I was thinking like, oh my God, another Japanese guy is going to look bad in the UFC. Ended up pulling through in the second round and carrying that momentum the first couple of minutes of the third round, which not a whole lot happened. One thing I will say about this, if Michihiro Omigawa wins his fight at UFC 138, or is he fighting on the Fox one? They're 1 week apart. If he wins his next fight, Omigawa, if he wins his next fight, I would really love to see Hatsu versus Omigawa in Japan, and that would be taking place in February. I would love to see that because I saw this in Goku fight and Omigawa won, and that was bullshit. So I'd love to see a rematch between those two. And I think it would actually attract a large Japanese crowd if you had two Japanese fighters who actually have some skills currently going head to head. All right, let me get into the bantamweight fight with, and I gotta just say this. What is Jeff Caron doing on the main card? I know that because you know GSP and Carlos Condit both had to pull out of the whole event together. I know that Spike TV has some sort of obligation with the UFC where they have to have two fights, but couldn't they switch the Dennis Silver and Cerrone fight with this one? I just don't understand. I can't remember when Jeff Caron won a fight, especially under Zuffa. I mean, I know he fought in the WEC, lost a bunch of fights there. He fought in the UFC like back in 2002 or something like that. And it's just like, I can't remember the last time he won a fight. So I don't know why this guy's on the main card. Ended up losing, I didn't really care, so what? Now, let's talk about the main event, Nick Diaz versus BJ Penn. Pretty much exactly what I said it was going to be in the preview. And one thing that kind of, and I don't like to gloat, and I never want to make this like oh yeah, I told you so, but it just irritated me to no other when I was reading all these different people talking about how BJ Penn is going to knock Nick Diaz out. I mean, yeah, he knocked out fading Matt Hughes, but really, BJ Penn has never been that great at welterweight, ever. I mean, he beat Matt Hughes, and then really, how many other people he beat? He beat Kenzo Gracie in, I believe, Japan somewhere. But I mean, Kenzo Gracie wasn't world ranked at the time. So I don't know why everyone, I mean, of course you always have faith in BJ Penn. He's an excellent fighter, but to the extent of which he was talking about how he's going to whoop Nick Diaz's ass was just insane. Yeah, BJ Penn ended up getting peppered the whole time, and you know, then Nick Diaz in very comedy fashion, he calls out GSP, and then he talks about you know, the things he went through personally, and it just led up to some story about some homeless man picking up cigarette butts outside his house. Okay, let me get to this whole GSP thing. And Dana White said he was gonna, Dana White said that GSP said that GSP was gonna give Nick Diaz the beating of his life. I think that was all rigged because remember, GSP has a lot of haters. I mean, let's go back to Matt Serra calling him fucking Frenchie. GSP was a little upset by that, didn't really say too much. Then there was the steroid allegations, both by Cesar Gracie and Josh Koscheck. And then there was Greasegate. I mean, that was BJ Penn's mother, and then, you know, other people has talked about it, like Sean Shirk, Matt Hughes, and there's videotapes of Chuck Liddell and Frank Mir during the event of GSP BJ Penn 2 talking about how GSP was greasing. So this whole Greasegate, and GSP has been pretty quiet. So for Nick Diaz just to say, oh, you faked an injury, I mean, actually that's probably one of the least insulting things that's taken place, but they've got to hype the fight up now. So I guess that's what it is. I'm actually going to wait about 20 hours or so until I release Weighing on the Weight Classes episode 9A, talking about the UFC 138. I probably won't be having that many edits in there because there's just not that many fighters I know about. It's a lot of European guys, and I don't have footage on them, and I don't know everything that's going on. I'll be talking about the fighters that I know, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.